Are you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh Blissett and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
Good afternoon and welcome back. If you have been on social media today, you're probably sick of seeing Tersh and I. So we had a couple episodes that we had scheduled, and this is our third one today. And this one is actually a return visitor from about a year ago. And we're going to be talking about, it's going to be on the venture capitalist side of thing. And Tersh, I honestly don't remember what you titled this episode. It's I think it's how to know if the deal is a good deal or a bad deal. And with the home service industry, we've all seen it, especially if you're watching us on social media, you're probably a part of some of the same groups we are. There is a lot of money coming into the home service industry, primarily even over the last 2 years with COVID and people being home and remote more. So this is going to be a very interesting topic for you as Claire is someone who helps specialize in getting your business ready for that. So that way you kind of plug the holes in your ship and fix things. So Tersh, I don't know if you had anything to ask on that, but
I mean, my biggest thing is, I don't know. A lot of times we think that if we just throw money at it, that's going to solve the problem. So Claire's going to debunk that myth a little bit for us. The last time that we spoke, you may remember it was episode, and we'll put a link in here so you can listen to it if you missed it. It's 464, how to grow your business without sucking at it, which was a great conversation. But I'm super excited to have Claire back on the show and to learn more from her. And so also there's a download also. So we'll talk more about that. But I'd like to welcome you to the show, Claire.
Welcome, Claire.
Thank you, guys. It's great to be back.
Well, I didn't totally
great to
botch
have
my
you
first
so much.
intro here. So
Oh, you did good.
Wasn't bad at all.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to meet you for the first time, and Tersh, it's great to see you again.
Likewise. Tell us a little bit about you, and for those who haven't heard, you didn't hear the last episode, and aren't familiar with you, what exactly is it that you do?
Sure. So I think my intro last time I explained that I'm a corporate survivor. So I spent close to 20 years of my career in corporate America and lived to tell about it. And about 10 years ago, I went out on my own. Kind of dabbled for the first couple of years. I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs in your audience can relate, right? Just sort of, it took a while for me to find my groove and to sort of settle into what I wanted to focus on as a business. And so 2 years later, in 2013, I founded my company, Talent Boost. And I, as an entrepreneur, you go through a lot of pivots. You evolve or die. So, one of the things that I learned was to constantly reevaluate where I am, how I'm serving my clients, and where I want to sort of take my business and my game to a next level. And so now I am focused primarily on the private equity and VC community to help them invest in the right businesses that will deliver the returns they're looking for, because nobody's in this game to lose money, right? So there are ways that we can sort of help them do that. And on the other side of the relationship, I work with entrepreneurs themselves to help get them ready to grow and to scale. And if investment is part of what they need in their growth plan, help them attract the right investors to support their ascension to that next level.
Sweet.
Jeez.
Good
You
job.
can tell this is our third one today.
So,
Tersh Tersh is out of questions.
No, I'm not.
They're burnt out from this morning.
It's way too early in the show for me to be out of questions. But I think the biggest one for me is why now? Or is it just because of social media we're hearing about it? But why are we getting bombarded with VC and even angel investing money into the service industry? Is it because, I mean, I've heard accountants say that they did their HVAC guys' taxes, and then they're like, wow, you're making, are you really making this amount of money? And then they, buy an HVAC company based off of that. Is it something to do with that, or is it something completely different? Like, why all of a sudden we see this cash coming in?
Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking before the show that to me anyway, I think it's a very good sign that this industry is seeing so much positive attention from the investment community. Like I said before, investors don't get into bed with a business to lose money. So if they are paying, particular attention to the service industry, it's for good reason. It's because they see a potential for growth. They see a potential where there isn't enough competition to render them, kind of fruitless in terms of their investment. And I think we live in a time now where so many people are out on their own, and so many people are kind of whetting their entrepreneurial appetite. And I think on the other side of that relationship, there are so many people. Josh, you and I were talking about this right before the show. There are so many people that are in our own, inner circle that we didn't even realize are in the investment game, even as a side thing, right? Everybody seems to be an investor in something, and it's no longer just your traditional portfolio of stocks and bonds. People want to be part of a business, an entrepreneurial venture, an idea that is, on the cusp of something great tomorrow. I mean, heck, if I could own at least a piece of SpaceX, I'd be all over that, because Elon Musk is like my spirit animal, but everybody on grand and small scales these days, it seems, is getting involved in the investment game. So it's interesting to see, and I think it's a very optimistic perspective.
If anybody is listening to this and they just happen to have a little bit of cash that they just want to throw out, like, hey, you can invest in me. We're cutting edge. We're definitely cutting edge. So throw that money this way. So
I'll gladly tell. Look at your brand colors, dude. Like, you are all about sporting that orange.
I am. I try. We try orange and black. That's what we're trying to do, for sure.
Black in that Savannah heat, man. That I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste, that's for sure.
Awesome. So Claire is back to like the show title and stuff. So obviously, I think because the home service industry hasn't gotten this attention in the past, there is the possibility for them someone throws a number at them, which is a good number for maybe the person doing the investing, but maybe for the service business owner, they look at it like, oh, that's a big number, bigger than what I'm used to. How do they know? How can they even start to understand if that's a good deal for them, if that's not a good deal for them, and where they should go from there?
Yeah, it's such an important question, because we can get so dazzled by the money, right? Somebody just decides to come in and, stake us as an angel investor or buy us outright, and they just put a dollar figure down. Being an entrepreneur, being a founder of a business is hard work. It's a labor of love, as we all know. And sometimes you're living pretty thin. You're living really close to the margin. And if somebody kind of times that, at the right time with the right offer and the right, number of zeros or number of commas, it can be really appealing to throw logic and caution and reason out the window and just, take the money. But Tersh, you alluded to this in your opening comments. Money isn't necessarily going to solve what might be, cracks in your foundation. So I would say to those people who are in that bittersweet moment of getting an offer, maybe even out of the blue from a potential investor, I call it bittersweet because it's very flattering to get that kind of an offer.
Yeah.
But it can also be very dangerous if you're not actually prepared to do the right things with what that money will allow you to do, right?
What do you mean by that?
Well, so when I work with businesses on that side, and either, they say, we want to get to the next level and we need some funding to do that, or we got, an offer out of the blue and it's, a bigger check than we had ever dreamed of, and all our problems are solved. That's probably the biggest myth in terms of being an entrepreneur, that money is going to solve everything. If you have a sudden influx of cash, it does not mean it's going to give you all the answers for how to get to the next level. There's a reason that these mega $1 million lottery winners are even worse off, a year later, after getting that windfall, because they don't have the foundation built for how to responsibly use and draw from that money, right? And so I hate to use that analogy, but unfortunately,
it makes sense.
It's true for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, it's wild, and they even have shows about that, about the lottery winners and where they are now and that type of stuff. And it's crazy how true that is. I have a friend of mine. His dad actually won this. He came up to me at a gas station, right? Now we're small town. We're a small town. Like, everybody knows everybody when they pull up at a gas station. But I'm pumping gas, and he comes up and he was like, "Hey man, did you hear somebody won that $1 million or $5 million, $10 million, whatever it was?" It was ridiculous amount of money. And I was like, "Yeah, I did. I heard they won it here in town." Like, that's the craziest thing. But we're on the interstate, so we're like a pit stop. We're halfway between Atlanta and Savannah, where I actually live. Not halfway, but we're at a point to where people like to stop and get gas. And so I was like, "Oh, it must have been somebody stopping and got gas," and blah, blah, blah. He was like, "No, it was me." I was like, "Get out of here. You're kidding me." Wow. He was like, "No, it was me." And I was like, "Are you serious right now?" He was like, "Yeah." I said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "I think I'm going to pay off my truck." I was like, "That's what's up. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear." Answer. And he was like, I said, "Are you going to quit your job or anything like that?" He was like, "No, man, I love shrimping," because he's a shrimper. He was like, "I love shrimping, man. I'm going to keep shrimping." And I had just fixed his air conditioning at his house, never sent him an invoice for it or anything like that. It wasn't really anything. He was like, "And I don't let me forget, I still owe you that case of shrimp for fixing the AC." And I was like, "All right, man, whatever." Like, you just won like millions of dollars.
That's what I love, when you can pay for your bill in shrimp. That's fantastic.
How we roll here in South Georgia.
I am literally, you said shrimping, and my mind went to Forrest Gump.
Right?
I mean, that's Savannah.
Even Forrest bought himself a new boat. Just saying.
He ended up buying him a new boat, and he's out there shrimping all the time, just making it. I mean, this has been 2 or 3 years ago.
Awesome. He's
still just as humble as he was back then, and I see him at church all the time. Just a great guy. And I'm like, man, that would not have been me, because I'd have 2 Corvettes. Actually, I'd have one for each day of the week. That's what I'd have.
Different color, depending on your
Absolutely. Mood. One black, one orange, one black and orange.
And I love that story, because he is obviously the exception, not the rule. Right?
Absolutely.
And I think that the secret to the fact that he probably still has at least a million or so left of that lottery windfall is that he stayed humble. That's the word you just used. And I think that's right. Like, he stayed grounded in the life that he already had.
Exactly.
And that he had already built. And all he wanted to do was maybe remove a couple of headaches so that he wasn't worried about those while he was out there feeding his passion of being a shrimping boat captain. Right?
Exactly. I mean, he definitely didn't buy a Bugatti Veyron, because that would have been one of the things crossed my mind. Like, can I afford one of them things, or do they come in orange?
You've been thinking about coming into some money for a while, haven't you?
My whole life.
Tersh, if you have to ask what Bugatti costs, you cannot afford it.
True story. True story.
Oh man.
So typically when you're thinking VC, though, in my mind, I'm thinking these people don't necessarily want me to stay on board unless it's a transition period of, like, these other people are coming in and I'm transitioning out. So in that circumstance, would there be an issue with cash flow coming in, or Is it going to be a similar thing? I mean, especially if we lived on thin margins prior to this, and we're kind of used to living on thin margins. Do you still foresee it being an issue, or is there a chance that like we take the money and then next thing you know, we don't have enough money to pay off all the debts and that type of stuff? I mean, obviously that would be a bad move on whoever took it, but
yeah, and that's right. It's kind of a poor reflection on the investor if they put all this funding behind a company and then they burn through it like that, that stereotypical lottery winner. I think on the investor side and on the entrepreneur side, they have to be really, really clear about what that next level looks like, right? The investor will call that a value creation plan. The entrepreneur will probably call it like, my point C, right? We got from point A, my origin, to point B, where we are now that we're ready to kind of scale. What does that point C look like? And I think the entrepreneurs, especially before they start, lifting their heads up out of the day-to-day to look for investment and look for some cash to come in to help them to grow, really needs to be super, super clear on what that next level looks like, why they want to grow. And then, when they do start to court investors, the first thing the investor needs to look at is, did they get to where they are right now through, some strategy and some sound execution of their plan, or was it blind luck? And there are ways to kind of, validate that. And most investors worth their salt have a very, consistent, very robust process for valuating a company and evaluating how they got from point A to point B. It's the steps after that become really critical, right? Because once you put that money down behind the company, you also have to make sure that the people in that company, especially at the top management level, have the capacity to take themselves to the next level. I was just talking to a founder about an hour ago, and we were kind of talking about this concept, and he said, you know what? He goes, I've grown my business from 0 people to 50, but I know that to get to about 200 people, 250 and beyond, we're going to need, some sort of an investment. And I also know that I'm not going to be the person to be the CEO of that bigger company. Oh, wow. And a lot of founders don't have that kind of self-awareness, but it's the rare founder who can take that, that idea out of their head, the first scrappy years of a startup, evolve it to a point where they do want to grow and scale and maybe take on an investor and still lead that larger system, that larger ecosystem, that more structured environment, that bigger team, that more, geographically dispersed sort of an operation. It's a very rare founder who can make that type of a pivot. And so it's really important from the entrepreneur side and from the investor side that you're able to assess that capacity for that leader to take that company to the next level. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to be, shown the exit as soon as they're ready to scale and they take on an investment. Yeah. But it may mean that they need to shift into a different role. Maybe they're more of an advisor. Maybe they're a mentor to, the next wave of new hires. Maybe they're more of a business developer than the CEO. And so, it really does depend on the person, but it is a very rare founder who can pivot from that sort of scrappy model of envisioning an idea and building a first team around it to really leading that company as they grow and scale.
How do they know that though? I mean, and also the investor, how does the investor come in and say, hey, look, you're just not the guy you don't fit this person. We like where you've come, but we don't think you're going to get. And would they ever have that conversation? Because maybe the founder is perfectly fine with it, but if nobody ever came, like say somebody came to me and said, hey, we're looking to purchase your company, but we think that your role would be better suited doing X, Y, and Z. And then I come back to them with, perfect. That's exactly what I want to do. I don't want to be the CEO of the X, Y, of the larger scale company. Is there ever a situation where the investor never says it and then they just pass by and pass on the sale because of never having that conversation?
Yes, and this is where it's bad enough if they pass on that conversation and then therefore pass on making that investment in the first place. It's worse though, and this is where it goes off the rails, if the investor commits to, putting their money behind a company, whether they just, put in an equity stake or they outright acquire that business. If they don't do that due diligence right after the decision to invest, to make sure that, those people, especially at the top of the business that they're acquiring or investing in, have the capacity and capability to lead to the next level, or to your point, even want to, right? And I think that's the biggest tipping point where these deals can fail. And that's not just my perspective. Bain and Company, which is like a big high ticket consulting firm, they put out this private equity global study earlier this year, and they said the biggest reason deals fail is the quality of the top management team in the business that you're acquiring or investing in. And it's quality in terms of the capacity. Do they actually have it within them to lead this company to the next level? The capability side, do they have the skills? And also the buy-in. Are they truly bought into what it's going to take and what the role is going to be of that investor to get them to this next point in their evolution? And on the flip side of that, the overwhelming biggest reason why deals succeed is that exact same variable, is the quality, the capacity, the capability, the buy-in, the mindset, the commitment of that top management team. And, not every investor and not every entrepreneur pays close enough attention to that. And it is absolutely critical right after you've made the decision to invest in a company, or on the entrepreneur side, you've made the decision to go out and court investors, that you assess and you measure and you evaluate that quality and that capacity. And there are ways to do that. And that's part of what I do when I work with both sides of that relationship.
Sorry, I'm taking your words and putting them into the comments. So just in case people are passing by.
Yeah, well, I have a few. I've been taking notes also. But so how do I know beforehand? Like, how do I know if I'm big enough for even to be interested, for anybody to be interested? And what's the time commitment and the process involved in doing all of this? Because say, I don't know, we're a $3 million a year company, and we're like, okay, we'll sell, that's interesting. People have mentioned it a couple of times, but then once it gets to the nitty gritty, once it gets to actually putting the, your dollars where your mouth's at, like, rubber to the road type stuff. And then they're like, yeah, we're not really interested. You're slightly too small for us. We need somebody at 5 million. How do you know before you go and put forth a ton of effort, or do you just need to be at 10 million before you even start thinking about it?
Yeah, it does depend, and I think you can get the answer pretty early on, on the entrepreneur side of which investors are even going to talk to you at the level that you're at, right? So if you're a $3 million company and you're looking to scale, to grow, to expand, et cetera, to evolve, and that you can't do that on your own, you're going to need the backing of some sort of an investor, whether it's an angel investor, a venture capitalist, a private equity firm, et cetera. Anything beyond just a traditional bank loan, right? You can, once you've sort of made that decision that this is what we are going to need if we have any hope at all of getting to the next level, you can then pretty quickly find, are we at this that certain plateau, that minimum plateau, to even be looking at this? Thank God for Google, right? Like, we're in an age where we can find pretty quickly the answers to, based on our size, based on our predictable revenue at this point, what level of funding would we even be eligible for? And there are, essentially matchmaker services that will put an entrepreneur in the path of prospective investors who will talk to a company at that level. So, I would say, just to answer your question, you can kind of validate pretty early on, before you go too far down the road of, developing what your pitch is going to be to a prospective investor, whether you are even at the level to get the kind of funding that you feel that you need.
Gotcha. And is there a calculator or a form that you would use to even guesstimate the amount of funding you're looking for, or like how do you determine that?
Yeah, that's outside of my wheelhouse.
Okay.
But I guarantee I'm 100% confident that they are out there.
Yeah, because that's my thing. Is like if somebody came to me and said, "Well, how much are you looking for?" Well, how much you got? That's about how much I'm looking for.
Boy, we all watch a little too much Shark Tank, right? It's like, well, how much is this one worth? Well, I'll give you this much money for a 33% stake.
Yeah.
Is there a good place, Claire, where anyone listening to this just is kicking around the tires and maybe wants to get some resources or something like that? Is there sort of a place that they should go, or a place that you know of, whether it's through you or someone else?
Yeah. So the easiest thing, other than just going to Google and then losing hours going down rabbit holes and finding cute puppy videos and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. The easiest first step, honestly, and I know we dropped the link somewhere in the notes here. I put together a checklist, and it's a free download that it targets kind of both sides of this relationship, right? The investors who are, evaluating a company or have just, acquired or invested in a company, and the company side themselves, who are exactly where you're describing. They're saying, you know what, we're comfortable where we are. We're kind of content that we've gotten to this point B, but we want to see if we're ready for what's next. We want to see what that next level could look like. That checklist is not going to tell you what that next plateau, how that's defined. What it will do, though, is ask you some really critical questions around the 11 levers that drive performance and profitability. And that is so important because before a company even considers growing, let alone seeking investment to help support that growth, they need to look at those levers and say, of these 11 that kind of drive performance and profitability, which ones are, do we have a competitive advantage because we're so strong in these levers, we could be promoting them more. We can be, pressing our advantage compared to our competitors. And which of these levers are real fundamental flaws for us right now that, within a first conversation, an investor is going to see that, sense that, and run. So I would encourage anyone in your audience who's looking for at least one first step to kind of self-assess where they are from both the investor side and the company side, go download that checklist, try it out. And if you do that, you will also unlock an opportunity to book a free call with me where we can go through a couple of those drivers in much more detail, and you can get a much better sense of how ready you might be to grow if you're on the startup side, or how ready you might be to invest in a particular company if you're on the private equity side. And
we don't anticipate anyone trying to frantically type that link in, so I did drop it in the comments.
I apologize.
Claire, have you ever heard of Bitly?
I didn't know you were going to put it in the ticker. I thought it would just get dropped in comments.
Well, I put you on the spot, and I think we'll come up with something shorter next time.
Yeah, definitely.
But it is in the comments. You can go ahead, click on that. It'll take you to the checklist, which then, if you are looking into this and starting that process, this would be a good place for you to start and have that conversation with Claire where you guys can dive a little bit deeper into exactly where you're trying to go with the business. Maybe she can help identify some things that you need to fix before you get to that point.
Yeah. What Josh said. Good job, Josh.
Did I take the
shorter link next time? Since we're doing these episodes annually, next year I will get you a much shorter link. How about that?
All right, sounds good.
Well, and you have to make sure Tersh didn't just eat lunch beforehand.
I don't know what you're talking about, Josh.
Awesome. So we have the free checklist. Claire, is there anywhere else that people should go if they want to get in touch with you? Maybe they don't want to do the checklist. Maybe they just want to schedule a call or something.
Yeah, sure. They can go to much easier link, talentboost.net. That's my company website. There are opportunities on there to book a quick call with me, learn a little bit more about my work. And I'd love it. So if you're looking to have a conversation, no strings, no obligation, just go out there and book a call and let's chat.
Okay, sweet. Awesome. You guys heard that's a much easier link to remember. Is the checklist on there?
The checklist is on there, yes.
So you could just go to talentboost.net and then find
Yeah, you could do that, but your audience is so like super smart. I expected all of them to type that other link in manually.
They are.
We live in the world of if it's not a clickable, easy button or something to remember, it's like
Yeah, they can go to talentboost.net. There's a link to the checklist, and there's a button right at the top of that page that says download now. So if you want the Cliff Notes version, go straight there.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming on the show again, Claire.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And like you said, if you need anything, reach out to Claire. She knows a lot more about this than any of us. So, but if you would like to have a conversation with me, feel free to reach out to me. I just won't be able to answer those questions that she can. So.
But he can talk to you about the shrimp and boat captain.
I could talk to you about that.
The guy who's got some disposable income. So
right, I might hit him up, see if he wants to invest in the company.
There you go.
There you go. Cool. Thank you again for coming on the show, and thank you everybody who's watching this episode of the Service Business Mastery Podcast, a podcast focused on service business owners, managers, and technicians who are considering becoming business owners themselves. Until we talk again next week, have a wonderful and safe week. See ya.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com to learn more.